As the sun makes its appearance, a wonder of brilliant golden shades radiate nobly, and it becomes obvious as to where Golden Gate Highland National Park got its name. A sea of sandstone cliffs and abundant outcrops are the result of the geologically complex process known as dune migration. A landscape of unbelievable cross-bedding structures, varied gradients, and a palette of vibrant hues was born. Welcome to Golden Gate Highlands National Park.
So we're now on the upper slope of the west-facing slope, and the temperature has increased by about 4 degrees, moving from downslope within an hour. Temperature currently is at 11.8 degrees Celsius, humidity 23%, dew point temperature minus 9 degrees Celsius, and we're currently at an elevation of 1,875 meters above sea level. And it's quite windy here, which makes it favorable conditions, as the wind speed is about 1.1 meters per second.
The objective of our project was to find out how the climatic factors, weathering, erosion, as well as rock hardness, affect the physical and biological features on the upper, mid, and lower levels of the west-facing slope of the Golden Gate Highland National Park. If you can come closer, I'll give you a brief insight of what exactly I'm on about. This exactly is the area that we're working on, and we made various of interesting findings. On our first findings on Saturday afternoon, we found that temperature increased as we moved down the slope due to the fact that we started working late, and the cold air was already rising, making the low and mid slopes warmer than the upper slope. Let me give you more of what I'm talking about. Golden Gate Highlands is a national park that is also influenced by valley climates. So although it did not experience any form of katabatic winds, it does not include the fact that they are not very much existent. Summers are usually mild to warm, with mean temperatures ranging from about 13 degrees Celsius to 26 degrees Celsius, and winters are cold, with mean temperature ranges from 1 degree to 15 degrees Celsius, according to Cooks and Pretorius 1987. Although, from our findings, towards the end of the winter season, we found that the temperature varied and ranged from 9.7 degrees Celsius to 20.6 degrees Celsius. On our second findings on Sunday morning, as you saw from the previous clip, temperatures increased with altitude, ranging from 9.7 degrees Celsius to 11.8 degrees Celsius. And this is due to the cold air that is still trapped on the lower slopes, as is out of the inversion layer, and it's very much active in existence. Frost pockets might have caused the above phenomenon, but unfortunately we didn't get any findings on frost pockets because we were too cold and scared to go into the valley at such very early hours. In essence, we found that climatic factors such as precipitation, temperature, light intensity, winds influence the Golden Gate Highlands National Park. Let me just give you a brief insight about the precipitation. Precipitation largely determines the vegetation type, especially in the area that we're working in, the grassland. The annual amount of precipitation is usually less important than its effectiveness for plant growth. And then in temperature has a major influence on the flora, not to mention the fauna, especially in the grassland, which is temperate, where mean monthly temperatures in summer, like I said, about average of 21 degrees Celsius. In terms of light intensity, it affects the process of photosynthesis, and in tropical ecosystems, receiving most incoming radiation have high energy inputs than the ecosystems nearer to the poles. And then in terms of winds, they increase the evapotranspiration and the wind chill factor. Trees are liable to bend if exposed to strong prevailing winds. So, Golden Gate Highlands National Park, very much of a temperate grassland, isn't it? The vegetation of the upper slope displays a defined temperate affinity, which shows that Golden Gate Highlands National Park temperature increases with altitude according to the Weather Bureau in 1965, which justifies our evidence. Thank you very much.
According to B. Roberts of the University of the Free State, Golden Gate Highlands National Park has a climate that is temperate in nature, and thus the biology of the area has adapted to suit the conditions. This means that the vegetation has adjusted to having a short growing season as well as a long and cold dormant season. If we want to take a look at the vegetation downslope, you may notice the abundance of conifers. This consists of low-lying trees and large shrubs. Along the non-perennial riverbed, evergreen trees, commonly known as ohot, can be seen. When looking at the midslope, it is evident that the vegetation is dominated by tussock grass, with a few flowering plants throughout. The trees that were seen on the slope were burnt, indicating a fire hazard in the region during the dry season. The marsh-like area is covered with sporobolus, which helps retain the moisture.
Okay, we determined a very good characteristics about the grass that occurs in this specific area. It's not big, but then it's still moist, even though there hasn't been rain in a couple of months due to the winter conditions. But then, due to the characteristics of this grass, it has very a lot of roots, which what am I gonna say?
Aren't we call this a marsh?
It has a marsh it has a marsh kind of characteristics, which means it stores water because of the roots it has. It has very narrow and a lot of roots which hold the soil and the water as it flows down. So it's gonna be moist throughout the winter conditions, and during the summer it's gonna be very damp because it has a marsh kind of condition. It traps the water flowing from the catchment area, which comes down here, and it's trapped in this area by the grass and its roots. That's why you see it's still green even though it's winter conditions, which means there hasn't been rain, but then there's still water and it's moist.
To add to her point, I'm sure we're all aware that a marsh can also act as a flame to help to trap carbon dioxide.
The main vegetation that can be found on the upper levels of the slope is tussock grass. We also found a Protea caphora. This protea has managed to protect itself from the fire hazards in the area. It does so by closing the flower to protect the seeds during the fire and then reopening thereafter so that it may spread the seeds and ensure its survival. When moving up a slope, one may notice many varieties of lichen on many different surfaces. Lichen forms as a product of a symbiotic relationship between a fungus and any other photosynthetic compound. They can survive in the harshest environments. One of the reasons is that they have adapted to deal with dehydration by stopping all biological processes. This conserves water, allowing it to last throughout the drought period. In order for lichen to grow, it embeds its roots into the surface. This allows the lichen to receive nutrients from the organism it is attached to. This makes it difficult to remove and enhances weathering on this surface.
On top of the slope, our elevation is 1,820 above sea level. So we're just gonna go quickly through the conditions up here. Our barometer is 812. Dew point, it's also decreasing, negative 8.3. Let's look at humidity. Humidity is 18.8, and then temperature it's 15.4. So our temperature showing a rise as we move up slope. So
the biology in this area, we notice that like a lot of grass which is growing on the rocks. And it's very significant because grass does not grow on rocks because there's like no soil here. And we also notice that there's like a lot of moss surrounding the grass that's growing on this area. So we've determined the fact that the grass has a lot of roots which trap soil in between them, and these roots trap the soil, and not just soil, but they also trap moisture when during the summer it traps moisture. With that said, due to the presence of soil and moisture trapped by the grass, there's a growth of moss around it. So there's like a symbiotic relationship between the grass and the moss, because the grass creates favorable conditions for moss growth by trapping the soil and trapping the moisture, which is favorable for the growth of moss in this area. Another factor in terms of geomorphology that we saw is the cracks and the fact that the sandstone on the surface is very fragile, and it's susceptible to, it's very fragile, you can just walk over it. So we just thought that due to the variations in temperature between day and night, so during the day it could get really hot, and during night it could get really cold, temperatures below 0 degrees. So this could cause expansion and contraction of the rock, which may result in the cracking and the breaking down of the surface rock in this area, resulting in these cracks. This makes the sandstone more fragile, and the water flowing out from the area can just transport or erode the rocks on the surface down to ground surface, which can now be converted into the soil on which the grass and the other tree grow. We are currently downslope, so we just noticed that the factors or the mechanism responsible for geomorphism in this area is the flow of water. As you can see, there's been a gorge here formed by the flow of water, and according to the sediments that we see here, which are large big rocks and boulders, this can determine the fact that when it rains, the water flow here is fast and it's rapid. But then there's sort of angular, and there's some which are slightly rounded. And according to my understanding of this rock, it has a dark muddy-ish kind of matrix with very small angular fragments in there. It could be a talite or an angular conglomerate. With that said, it's matrix supported. We're looking at the soil beside the riverbank. As you can see, it's dark over here, means it's full of organic material, and it's lighter over here. There's light, but then it's sort of reddish, meaning there's sort of some iron and oxidation in this area. Some iron and oxidation in this area. Okay, so this part has been altered. The flow of water when it's during the rainy season causes the banks to fall down. So this is like the mechanism that's responsible for altering this landscape is water. Let's look at the biology. Okay, in this area we have lichen. As you can see, this kind of lichen is grayish green, and it grows along the side on the plant, and some you can find on the rocks. So it's very different from we're going to determine the fact that it's different from the lichen growing upslope, because the conditions here are way different from up there. Okay, thank you. Let's go on. Okay, we're now at Midslope. So now we're going to look at how the lichens, there's been a change in the color of lichens from where we were initially downslope, and now we are Midslope. So the lichen at this point has changed color from the grayish green to a gray color and a distinctive orange color. And as we've spoken before, that the main mechanism of geomorphism and erosion down there was water. But then when we look at this it's also still water, but then it experiences a lot of chemical erosion. As you can see, there's evidence of dissolution pits on the rocks, and they changed. This is a very large scale, but even though there's not it's a boulder which was initially eroded from that outcrop, but when it got here, it started experiencing a lot of chemical erosion, which resulted in these dissolution halos and cavities forming on the surface of the rock. Okay, we're looking at the rock surface. it's on the plate, so it's on an incline. But then we looked at the fact that there's weathering that occurs in this area, but then the rocks which move from this area move in a slab or a narrow layer of rock. As you can see down there, that's where they've fallen due to gravity. But then you can determine the fact that there's a flow of water which moves into the cracks and the cavity of this rock in a layer kind of form. And due to the fact that there's a large variation in temperatures between day and night, so the temperatures during the day are very high and at night they're very low. So the water which flows from the outcrops into the cracks can freeze, which causes the expansion of the cracks and fractures, causing this rock to weather in a layer kind of fashion. We can't say it's exfoliation, because exfoliation occurs due to a decrease in pressure when an igneous rock is exposed to the surface. As I mentioned before, the main mechanism for erosion and geomorphism in the downslope is water. As you can see in this area, the area has been cleared by the flow of water from the upper mountain, which comes down to here. So the area has been cleared by the flow of water. There's no grass growing here, and yeah, it's going to continue growing until, like, I think there could be a potential donga which could form here, because there's no grass holding down the soil, because it's bare and exposed and very fragile and susceptible to erosion. And the grass which is growing could be easily washed away by water, but then it seems stable. But then during high rains and high velocity waters coming from the upper mountain, this could potentially form a very big and wide donga unless they plant more grass, which will potentially stabilize the soil.
The other significant features we found upslope are dissolution pits. Dissolution pits, also known as namas, occur on the sandstone platforms. Dissolution pits are formed as a result of chemical weathering on the sandstone by standing of water during the rainy season. The water introduces oxygen to the system, which reacts with silica within the rock and forming these pits in the sandstone. The size of the dissolution pits we found range from the largest, which had a diameter of 3.7 meters and a length of 7.5 meters, and the smallest dissolution pit we observed had the diameter of a 10-cent coin. One of the most prominent features we found upslope were rock donuts. Rock donuts are circular or oval geomorphological features which are characterized by a raised rim which is resistant to erosion. This rim is surrounding a circular central depression or a pit which exhibits dissolution characteristics. The fact that the raised rim is more resistant to erosion we determined by the Schmidt-Hammer readings. The readings made on the rim were greater than the ones made on the surrounding sandstone surface.
I'm going to measure the rock hardness at high elevation with a Schmidt-Hammer. And the value is 32. So I'm going to measure the rock profile on a rock donut.
What's this?
And this is the profile, as you can see over here, and we're going to draw it on a piece of paper.
Right now we're about to measure the hardness of the rock using a Schmidt-Hammer, and the reading is
36.
36?
Yeah.
According to what has been discussed in the documentary, based on the observations and findings made at the Golden Gate Highland National Park, in an attempt to answer the question, how do climatic factors, weathering, erosion, as well as rock hardness affect the physical and biological features on the upper, mid, and lower levels of the west-facing slope, it can be concluded that climatic factors, weathering, erosion, as well as rock hardness have a great influence on the biological and physical features. Climatic factors, weathering, erosion, as well as rock hardness vary with altitude, therefore influencing the type of biological and physical features at different elevations of the slope. This is evidenced by the type of biological and physical features found at different altitudes of the slope, which are specific to certain climatic factors, weathering, erosion, and rock hardness.
I've never seen a diamond in the flesh. I cut my teeth on wedding rings in the movies, and I'm not proud of my address. In a torn up town, no postcode envy, but every song